You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, on Twitter at Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, Mr. Bob Harris on Twitter at Football Diehard, and Kyle Dvorchak at Kyle Tweets here. I was going to say at Kyle the Kid, but that is the old Kyle. Mr. Harris, it is July. Things are warming up literally in terms of weather and figuratively. What's up? Football's heating up. We're busy. Football spells fall up here, which means cooler weather. You're in Albuquerque. What's going on?
Oh, just finished all the Fantasy Sports Publications magazines, the parent company of the Football Diehards. So if you're out walking around, roiling through the newsstands, you'll look for the Pro Forecast, the 30th anniversary edition. You'll also look for the Cheat Sheets magazine, the Draft Book magazine, the Diehards magazine itself. A very good edition. Some great articles by some great people, great contributions by people like Justin Lonero. You might have heard of him or not, I don't know. And Kyle Dvorchak, great job by both of you throughout the magazines. People should check it out. Of course, if you get the magazine, you will have access to the website as well. I know the complaint about magazines, they get out of date. No, it doesn't.
Nope.
Go to the website. We've got the ongoing stream of news, the constantly adjusted rankings, and look, like I said, the 30th anniversary issue of the Pro Forecast. We've been doing this a while. We figured out how to, come up with content that's less time sensitive in the magazine, more focused on strategy and long-term issues, and we keep the focus on the shorter-term issues on the website. But anything that changes, you'll find on the website. So go out and check them out. You can also order online now. If you order the magazine, you get the website access throughout the summer. You also get digital versions of each magazine, so you can look those over. They're waiting there for you now. So, and if you will, if you make the order, you get one shipped to you, and you can read it right away. It's a pretty good system. I think you'll enjoy it all. And beyond that, we're in the middle of crazy draft season. I know a big thing in the fantasy community that we're all involved in. A lot of people are, is the Scott Fish Bowl, and it's a nice 1,200 team endeavor put together by our friend Scott Fish for charitable causes. It's a great cause. They ends up making a lot of money to buy a lot of kids' toys for Christmas. So check it out. And it's an interesting scoring system. Justin, why don't you jump in here and kind of lay out, the approach you take. It's basically a super flex league, 2-quarterback league, tight end premium. What's your approach here?
Well, I landed pick 3 this year. This is year 7 for me in the Scott Fish Bowl, and you're obligated in any format to take a running back at this point in time. I suppose you could take a Travis Kelce, but that's not for me. So I took Christian McCaffrey, pick 3. Odell Beckham fell to me round 2, and then Antonio Brown. So now I got 2 elite wide receivers, and it was a really nice, balanced draft. I would say I landed Kenny Golladay in the 7th, a little earlier than Austin Hooper. I have at tight end 4, went to me round 8, so I was thrilled with that. Typically, I'm getting around 10 or 11. And my other tight ends are Trey Burton, Jimmy Graham, Mike Gesicki, and Gerald Everett. So I loaded up on tight ends, have 3 quarterbacks. We can wait on quarterbacks in this format. You cannot. So I grabbed Kirk Cousins round 6, Derek Carr round 9. The value is obviously enhanced, and then pick 22 was Case Keenum. So it's important that you have tight ends. A lot of tight ends in the sea of mediocrity. Was not compelled to grab a tight end super early, although you could, whether it be Ertz, Kittle, or Travis Kelce. A lot of balance here. I landed Emmanuel Sanders round 15, and he is not going to be on the PUP, says John Elway, which is terrific. If you look at my team, it really is beautiful. Got a lot of veterans. It was a lot of value. Devontae Freeman round 4. And I got Jalen Richard round 16, which John Gruden has compared to Charlie Garner. So I'm liking him in that spot. It's a nice team. I'm interested to see where how it shakes out, but it's a big field to cut through, and there's a lot of good teams.
Because we're honest on this show, I'd like to press you, Justin Lonero. You said you drafted 3 quarterbacks, yet I only heard mention of 2.4.
Yeah, right. Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and Case Keenum. So
2, and then the 0.4.
Right.
You
but
feel
I have
comfortable
3.
with that Case Keenum pick, Justin?
Not really.
Right.
Not really at all.
There will be some scrambling on waiver wires for all of us in this league, and we all pay a lot of attention. Kyle, your approach. Did you go tight end earlier in this one? Did you go quarterback earlier in this one? By the way, Justin, I love the Cousins, maybe one of the best values in this year's draft based on last year's finish and maybe some anticipation of progress. And look, Derek Carr, if he got a bunch of new weapons at some point, the guy who threw as many touchdowns through his first 2 seasons as a pro as everybody ever except Dan Marino might throw another one. So you got that going for you. Kyle, your approach.
Yeah, it's amazing for how bad Justin is at fantasy football. That team's actually pretty good, Justin. I'm impressed. That's actually a squad. I thought Christian McCaffrey should have been 101. That's like the most shocking thing to me is with the for those of you who don't know, the Scott Fishbowl has bonuses for every 50 yards. You get both rushing and receiving. You get like a 5-point bonus. So once you hit this 50-yard threshold, then 100 yard, then 150 yard, you get an extra 5 points. So hitting those thresholds, especially for the games Christian McCaffrey goes 100 or 150, that's an extra 15 points. He is going to crush, and he doesn't have that awful Giants offense floor like Saquon Barkley does. So to get him at 103 is like the GOAT start. Mine, I went 3 running backs early. I kind of went, I think we've mentioned it on the podcast before, but sort of like a hyper fragile draft where you take 3 early running backs and then you kind of punt the position from there on out. I still have more running backs in my roster, but I didn't get them till way into the double-digit rounds, I don't think. So my guys were Le'Veon Bell at the 11th pick, and I have not taken Todd Gurley this early, but I thought if there's a way to win the Scott Fishbowl, it's getting a guy like Todd Gurley or Tyreek Hill or even Damian Williams, who's a guy who I think has top 5 upside and non-existent floor. It's taking those guys who have the asymmetrical floor ceilings earlier just so you can get them on your roster. I'm not doing this in almost any other draft, but I don't really care if I come in almost last in the Scott Fishbowl because I did that last year almost. So
I did too, and there's like 1,200 teams, and nobody remembers any of the 1,200 teams except the champion.
I want to win. I don't care if Todd Gurley's knee explodes in week 2. If it doesn't, I got him at the second round, second pick. So I did that. I took Josh Jacobs because despite I wasn't really high on his talent, he's going to dominate that backfield. I think he's another guy who has a chance to go for those 150-yard bonuses, both in rushing and receiving. And then I moved on to like uber upside wide receivers in Will Fuller, just on a weekly basis. Will Fuller, McCole Hardman, Tyler Lockett, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And this is actually the one pick that holds true in, I think he's my highest owned receiver in best ball, is Adam Thielen. I don't know how people keep letting Thielen slip. He's the greatest value. He's like the next Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. So you were tight ends again, running them by me?
Oh, yeah, my tight ends suck. They're Vance McDonald, who actually loves a sleeper this year.
Right.
But I punted the position thinking that the tight ends aren't going to hit more than that 50-yard bonus very often, if at all. Tight ends aren't going to hit the 100-yard bonus, so getting an extra 10 points for that. Whereas receivers, Will Fuller's going to hit that, 5 times in a season or something like that. So I think
if he's healthy,
yeah. Of the 10 games he plays this season, he'll hit it 5 times, exactly. Yeah, whereas, unless you're Travis Kelce, you're not going to hit that anything above a 50-yard bonus almost at all. Tight ends just aren't getting 100 yards. So I think that 50-point or that 5-point bonus for every 50 yards is a really quiet dampening of the tight end premium. So I took Vance McDonald because I think he's one of the few guys who really could, be the second or, 2B option in his offense. And then I took Dallas Goedert because it's another guy. I don't think he'll really provide much value unless something happens, but his talent level is so high that if anything happens to Zach Ertz, he's a top 5 tight end.
I tend to agree with that. And by the way, Chris Conti would agree with your Vance McDonald pick. He's going to run some people over. I kind of took a similar approach on the tight ends. It's interesting in that, I kind of, I focused a little more on quarterback. I felt like this was a draft where I missed out. I had the 9th pick overall, missed out on Kelce by a pick, coming back around, missed out on Ertz, another tight end I wanted. So once it was there, I went later with the tight ends and took upside guys. And, the usual suspects, look, Tyler Eifert, if he ever stays on the field, is going to score a lot of touchdowns because that's what he does. I kind of buttressed that with the Delaney Walker. a guy who, before he was hurt last year, had 3 straight seasons as a top 5 tight end. Picked him a little later, and then I went with the Darren Waller. I think is a sneaky play in that offense. Sneaky. And I like him. And I kind of on the late, took a couple flyers on guys. But I think in general, I kind of went running back heavy early. Not real happy with Leonard Fournette as my first running back. But, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I also have Aaron Jones and Sony Michel, which I picked them in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Started out with DeAndre Hopkins, followed up with Andrew Luck, then got those 3 running backs. Then I got Kirk Cousins. Then I went a little more upside at wide receiver with Robbie Anderson, Sammy Watkins. So I feel pretty good in general. Devin Funchess. Went for some guys I thought might score touchdowns. John Brown late. Devontae Parker. Look, he can't run routes, but he can run past people. At some point, that's going to matter. Same with John Brown, by the way. I mean, if you're looking for guys who can just run past people and play with big arm quarterbacks, maybe that's going to work. Parker, for whatever time Larry or Ryan Fitzpatrick can hold on to that job. Yeah, buddy, I'll take a piece of that and see what happens. But those are the kind of plays you make in this league. Like Kyle said, it's the upside plays. It's easy to go with the steady eddies and the standard guys, but in this league, I don't think you're going to distinguish yourself as that. So a good time for all of us in drafting there. Another thing we're all doing right now is playing tons of best ball. I know I am. I know Justin does. I know Kyle does. Kyle, how many thousand best balls are you in at this point?
I think, 40, 50,000. How many best balls are there? And take away like 5, and that's me. Yeah. No,
yeah, we're all.
I really do have
playing
a
heavily.
degenerate amount of best balls though. Like especially when you consider how much time I spend at my day job playing best ball. Like I probably shouldn't have a day job.
Right. Well, you won't after your boss listens to this. So. Let's just start out. I wanted to go through it and talk about maybe by position some of the guys that we find ourselves drafting often and some of the guys we're not getting so much of and maybe why. And I'll start with you, Kyle, at quarterback. Who are the guys you're getting? Who are the guys you have a high ownership in? And who are you not buying into? And is there a reason for that beyond you don't like them?
Yeah, so this is we're going to devolve so quickly because if you follow either Justin or I on Twitter, you'll know our opinions on this. My number 1 quarterback, Lamar Jackson, he is my highest owned quarterback because he goes so late, and he was the highest, the most rush attempts for a quarterback last season. Played half a season. He was the most rush attempts for a quarterback ever last season, to be clear, and he played half a season. He is a running back in the backfield. He is going to set records for rushing yards as a quarterback. And, if he gets hurt, that's kind of the risk you play with best ball. So, he's my number 1 owned quarterback. Just behind him, Kyler Muray at number 2. He is the most prolific single-season quarterback to ever play in college. He is heading into the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury in the air raid system. They surrounded him with weapons. I liked Christian Kirk last year. I think Andy Isabella is super underrated. I still think David Johnson might be the best receiving back in the NFL right now, despite what you think about Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. When you look at air yards, so the depth a running back, or any player, but for this case, a running back is running, he actually has the most air yards in a single season for a running back, and it's not particularly close. He's the only running back who really actually gets used downfield, as opposed to Christian McCaffrey, who is a god at taking short yardage plays long, but he doesn't get used like a receiver where David Johnson actually does. So I think Kyler Murray has one of the quietest, sneakiest, best upside surrounding cast. He's got the best situation in terms of, best undervalued situation. I won't say he's any better than like a Jared Goff situation, but I really do think that when you look how Texas Tech ran their offense under Cliff Kingsbury, we're going to see something similar to that. I am so high on this offense. It's just, he's so easy to take in the 9th round. I don't see how you get that every time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, Lamar Jackson, by the way, is my highest owned percentage too, because it seems like to me Kyler Murray's going off a little sooner. I do want a little more Murray. We're all trying to catch that Patrick Mahomes magic here. I agree with what you say about Lamar Jackson, although I don't think it's possible. Well, I don't expect him to run as much. Look, the numbers he put up last year were freakish in that. Cam Newton is, I think, the guy with the next most, average number of carries per season. And if Jackson matches that, I think it'll be great. I don't expect him to double, what the carries he had last season. I think we'll see a lot of running backs. So who are you missing out on mostly, Kyle?
The biggest one, I don't know. I don't have a single share of Patrick Mahomes, just because when you look at guys, 3 guys
too early.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's like, I don't want to say that it's just free money, because that's just sort of the very first baby's first best ball draft is don't take the first quarterback off the board. But, I mean, I just don't see how you can take him when there are guys with similar upside like Deshaun Watson or Andrew Luck going rounds later, and guys with, comparable or the next tier of upside going so many rounds later, like Carson Wentz, who's a guy I'm high on, or Cam Newton, who I think Cam Newton's probably one of the best values. He's been a top 5 quarterback so many seasons. Even his first season, he was the number 2 or 3 quarterback, I believe. So just when you look at the upside of guys going 8 rounds later and it's similar, that just baffles my mind that you can take guys with the same upside so much later, and it's your opportunity cost. When you take a guy in the 4th round like Patrick Mahomes, you're missing out on much better talents, at least in terms of what they can add to your best ball team. Let's say, Brandon Cooks will add so many good wide receiver winning weeks, as opposed to Patrick Mahomes. You can just get, Kyler Murray.
Right, and if we're expecting some aggression, and I know Evan Silva put out a chart over the last 10 years, only one quarterback has not regressed. And let's say, I will say, if Patrick Mahomes' regression is on the high end of what we've seen historically over the last 10 years, let's say 20%, he's still throwing 40 touchdowns. It's still going to be good. I think that's enough for Justin, who is always a year behind, to be drafting the hell out of him. No, I'm just kidding. Justin, tell me about your quarterback approach. Who you getting? Who you missing?
Look, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. So I have the most exposure today on Kirk Cousins. And he is not Joe Montana. However, when you look at the Minnesota Vikings offense, you gravitate towards the talent surrounding him, that being Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, who Kyle talked about, healthy Dalvin Cook, and hopefully better offensive line. Kyle Rudolph, when efficient, is one of the better tight ends in the NFL. They draft Irv Smith Jr. round 2 out of Alabama. Wonderful tight end. We know historically rookie tight ends struggle. So it's an offense that's going to go. And if there's any semblance of balance with Dalvin Cook playing the way that he played at Florida State, this is a Vikings offense that's going to go. And obviously their defense is terrific as well. So when it comes to quarterback, I'm one of these guys, and I know, Bob, you can be in agreement with me. I'm gravitating towards the Phillip Rivers. It's going to be the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world. I'll have some Matt Ryans that I have to spend a little more on, but you want a part of that top 5, top 6 Atlanta Falcons offense. So give me some Matt Ryan. The Russell Wilsons of the world and the Winstons, the Mayfields are fine. I even have some, Andy Dalton, really, really, really late. Drew Brees is on a fast track. He's not dead yet. It seems like Drew Brees we don't want Drew Brees to go away, but it's a position where it seems like there's just so much depth that you don't get. Even in the Scott Fish Bowl, I was not nervous. I think Eli Manning was around in round 16 or 17. We missed on him, but it just goes to show you that even in that format, you can have quarterbacks late in a super flex. So now naturally, who I'm not having exposure to are I have 0 Patrick Mahomes, not because I'm pessimistic about, him as an NFL quarterback, but the cost, everything is baked into the cost. So I have 0 Patrick Mahomes. Andrew Luck is in that same scope. A little bit of Deshaun Watson. If I'm going to wait a little later, I'm going to take Carson Wentz because I think Wentz can perform as well as any of those mentioned guys right there. But 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to be boring. I want Kirk Cousins. I want Drew Brees, and I want Phillip Rivers, and I can have all those guys rounds 9, 10, right. 11, and we're good.
Right, and I guess that's the thing for me. Again, like you guys, not getting a lot of Patrick Mahomes. I do have a share just because I want a piece of that, just in case. And when you play in a lot of leagues, you can have the flexibility to indulge on a roster or two. But I'm kind of with you on Kirk Cousins, Justin. I think a guy who finished well inside the top 10, I think 9 last year, so inside the top 10.
Justin, let me ask you, I'm looking at Best Ball ADP right now. We've got Drew Brees at quarterback 8, Russell Wilson at quarterback 9, Cam Newton quarterback 10, then Kyler Murray at quarterback 11. Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray. Where are you taking those guys in that order?
Well, it's going to be Wilson. Say it again. So Wilson, Murray,
Brees, Newton, and Murray.
Yeah, well, Murray's going to be the last one. I mean, if we're going to talk about, I know this has been an ongoing thing with you and I and numerous other people. Look, Kyler Murray, is a rookie quarterback, right, on a team that finished 32nd in offense in just about every offensive category. So it's going to take a miracle. We have a green head coach in Cliff, right? But historically, we've seen Joe Namath struggle year one. Troy Aikman, Phil Simms, John Elway, Terry Bradshaw, Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, Dan Fouts, Drew Bledsoe, Peyton Manning. So it's not inconceivable to see Kyler Murray struggle year one and already. Now look, Kyle, we like the Christian Kirks. Larry Fitzgerald's going to do the moonwalk into Canton. David Johnson is healthy. We get all that, but the complexity of the transition heading into the NFL give the best of the best jitters. So I am skeptical at his price. I know he's a good quarterback. Probably do what Patrick Mahomes did in year two. But it's Russell Wilson. It's going to be Cam Newton, and then it's going to be Kyler Murray all day long. And it's going to be Wilson and Newton primarily because they're fantastic quarterbacks, but they have the NFL experience, and I think that's why I'm so hesitant at taking Kyler Murray where he's going. And look, everybody seems to think that the Cardinals are going to be this fantastic offense. It's a long off season, but the fact of the matter is, if this offensive line does not improve,
I think he's a different quarterback, right? But they're running a different offense, and I'm not going to draft last year's worst team. I'm going to draft this year's team that I project to be running more plays and doing more things. The issue for me with Murray is I'm going to reach up and grab him a round or two ahead of ADP to make sure I get him in the leagues I want to have him. Right. And then I'm going to grab one of those Phillip Rivers, one of those Kirk. Well, not in this case, not those guys because they have the same bye week as Kyler Murray. But I'll do the same with Lamar Jackson to ensure that I get them, and then I'll back them with a steadier guy. And oftentimes, if I go risky or riskier, like I have leagues where I have Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, right? And so that means I'm probably going to go 3 deep at a onesie position. I'll do the same at tight end where my many shares of Tyler Eifert and Jordan Reed, who are practically freebies at this point, I'm going to mitigate that risk with a little more depth at the position. And I'll do the same thing at quarterback when I go with Kyler Murray. But anyhow, we've quarterbacked ourselves to death. Let's look at running backs. Justin, start with you. Running backs, you're targeting. Well, everyone knows the top 4, right? I mean, we're all drafting as many of the shares of the top 4 as we can. So let's get past the Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and maybe throw out a guy you're trying to draft at value.
I'm happy that most of the drafts that I've been in have been on the later side, so I'm not obligated to have a McCaffrey, Zeke, and so on and so forth. So I have the most exposure to Jalen Richard with the Raiders. I know John Gruden likes him. This is a guy that can catch 70 passes out of the backfield. I'm getting him rounds 15, 16. There's no, as far as Jacobs goes, tonight it looks like he's going to be the bell cow, but I want a guy, a cheap, poor man's James White type of player that is capable of 60, 70 receptions that late. It's just as simple as that. Now, as far as Ronald Jones and a Bruce Arians offense, I have quite a bit. If he does not perform well, I know it'll be the Peyton Barber show. We'll be talking in a few months. It'll be Peyton Barber. We know what Peyton Barber is. He's a plotter for the most part. Good running back, but they drafted Ronald Jones. And I think it's too early to just throw in the towel on Jones. So at his price, I also got him in the 10th round in the Scott Fish Bowl, so I was happy with that. On a Bucs offense that we want to see going, I think has the capabilities. Similar to the Arizona Cardinals. As a team you look at on paper and say, wow, the Godwins of the world. Wow, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard. So Winston, let's see what Winston can do with a little pressure. Also, Kenyon Drake is somebody that I want to see unleash. In spite of his sporadic usage last year in Miami on a bleak Dolphins offense, I think Kenyon Drake is a special running back. Everything we're talking about tonight is price involved. So it's, Kenyon Drake, I think, is probably one of the lone stars on that Dolphins offense. But I want to have exposure to him because I think he's a damn good running back, permitting he is used appropriately and not. I like to see Kenyon Drake get the ball 200 to 250 times. Anyways, and Lamar Miller, we're going to go back to Lamar Miller. It's still his backfield in Houston. He's a volume back that can catch 40 passes, and you're getting him at kind of a discount. So I know we want to see what Deontay Foreman can do, a healthy Deontay Foreman. I feel like we've been talking about this for a few years, but give me some Lamar Miller. And the last guy I'm going to talk about that I do have exposure to because I've been getting him around 4 sometimes is Leonard Fournette. The guy has been healthy since high school, but let's face it, gentlemen, this is an offense that primarily or historically they want to play defense, run the football. And if Leonard Fournette, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago in fantasy drafts, if he stays healthy, he can have 275 carries, 50 receptions. You're talking about an RB1 in the 4th round. Obviously, he's only 24 years old. It's his backfield. TJ Yeldon is gone. So tack on 15, 20 receptions for Fournette, and bang, you have an RB1 round 4. But obviously, it's the injuries with Leonard Fournette that always come into the back of your mind. No longer do you have to pay that round 1, 2 premium for him. But if he's there late round 3 or round 4, and I already have my wide receivers, then I'm fine taking him, and I'll take that gamble.
I've been with that as well, and that's kind of how it ended up in the Scott Fish Bowl. Kyle, some running backs of choice for you.
Yeah, Justin, I hate your quarterback selection, but in running back, we're pretty lockstep. I have Lamar Miller as my number 1 owned running back. It's just like you said, he's always undervalued. It's so gross. You're like, ew, Lamar Miller. Ugh. But he's gonna get the lion's share of the touches there, and it's an offense that we're so excited about. Why aren't you excited about the running back? It's just the chance of him scoring double-digit touchdowns is so much higher than his ADP would have you believe. Just because if you're a good running back, or if you're a capable running back, which he is on a good offense, your touchdown upside is immense. So he's my number 1 owned running back. Beyond that, another guy I'm really interested in is Nyheim Hines, just because he was a guy who got a ton of touches on one of the best offenses in the league last year. He had 85 carries, nothing super special, scored twice on that, but then he got 63 receptions as a rookie, catching passes from Andrew Luck. He only scored a total of 4 times. I expect that to go up. I think he'll get some spike weeks. I don't think he'll really push Marlon Mack for like bell cow duty or anything, but just being a prominent role on an Andrew Luck-led offense.
Right.
I don't know how you don't buy into that in the double-digit rounds. That's another guy who I just think is good value. And that's mostly what my running back strategy is. My wide receivers and quarterbacks, I guess, I have very strident opinions on. Running back, I'm just looking for volume. That's really all I'm super caring about. Latavius Murray, in the same vein as Lamar Miller. He doesn't have to carry the entire share of that Mark Ingram role. He's on an offense that has been top, I believe, 3 in total running back fantasy points over the past 5 years, each single year. This is an offense we know in New Orleans is going to produce fantasy points out of the backfield, whether it be Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, whoever they put in, they're just going to score points. Latavius Murray, he'll be the next guy to do it, and he's a guy who over the past 3 years leads the league in red zone carries, I believe, maybe also goal line carries, but he's always up there because you look how big and athletic he is. If there's anything he's going to do well, he's going to get you 2 yards. And when you're on the 2-yard line, he's going to score a number of touchdowns and put up a lot of good fantasy performances for his value. Last guy I want to talk about, Darrell Henderson. This one might end up being more for your home leagues because his ADP is skyrocketing. I think all of my shares came a month or more out. But in your home leagues, if you're listening, they're not going to know about Darrell Henderson. They remember Todd Gurley, the star, the MVP of the league, despite not playing an important position. But if he just misses a game or 2, those are both Darrell Henderson RB1 weeks. And then when you think about, they've called Darrell Henderson their Alvin Kamara. If he's a guy who gets 10 touches a game, if he gets 8 or 9 touches a game, he'll put up multiple RB1 performances just out of getting fluky, 1-2 touchdown weeks.
Couple thoughts. Murray or Miller, if he does not get 50%, at least half of the designed runs, it'll be the first time, according to Mike Clay, our friend at ESPN, that a 50% benchmark, that he hasn't hit that since his rookie year in 2012. So, we all hear the Deonta Foreman talk, but don't sleep on Lamar Miller too late. He is a great value. I agree totally on Latavius Murray. I will say Nyheim Hines, for me, is a guy that he's the Tariq Cohen, right? Look, Tariq Cohen's great, but you're paying for Tariq Cohen being great. Yep. I would rather play for Nyheim Hines being greater at a much better price. So we have that. Kyle, let's get into the wide receivers for you.
We talked about him in the Scott Fish Bowl talk, but this one is just, it's so obvious to me. Adam Thielen, I don't get why. I love Stephon Diggs. I'm a numbers guy. He's got a young breakout age, a great college dominator. It's everything you love seeing the numbers. But when you see Adam Thielen outproduce him year over year, how do you not just keep drafting Adam Thielen, especially his value? I've gotten him, deep into the 3rd round before. It's not that I think Adam Thielen is the greatest receiver of all time. I just want to score fantasy points, and I want to buy cheap fantasy points. He's probably the cheapest fantasy points you can buy in the first 3 rounds. After that, DJ Moore. When you look at guys at the age of 21 who are producing over 900 all-purpose yards, I guess not all-purpose, technically yards from scrimmage, because DJ Moore is actually, I believe he is the second most rushing yards for a wide receiver as a rookie ever, only behind Tyreek Hill. He's one of the most dynamic athletes in the NFL right now when you look at young producers. I think next year he's going to be a stud, and if not, in the next 2 years he will be. Because basically all the guys at the age of 21 as rookies who did what he did went on to be wide receiver ones at some point. It's guys like Keenan Allen. It's guys like even Percy Harvin had great seasons just because he was a dynamic athlete. And then at the top of the draft, one more guy, Juju Smith-Schuster. It's the same argument. When you add young production, immensely young production, and you adjust it for just how good they have been throughout their career, Juju Smith-Schuster is on track to be in the Hall of Fame already because so few players have ever done what he's done. I just believe that that is one of our most predictive stats going forward is age-adjusted production. He's got the best of it, maybe in the history of the NFL. Moving a little deeper, I love guys. Tyrell Williams, I just think this offense has so many vacated targets and air yards. When you look at this, the Raiders offense last year, it was Jordy Nelson, gone. Jared Cook, gone. Martavis Bryant for a stretch of games, gone. I believe Seth Roberts, gone. Like their top non-Jalen Richard receivers, which Justin, I like that pickup too. He's not a guy with a super high upside, but I mean, he's free. He literally costs nothing. I just want to buy pieces of this because I believe there's so much available targets and air yards. And when we saw, we've seen Derek Carr play well before. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but he's been set up to fail for 2 years in a row, arguably. I think there's a chance he does at least a serviceable job this year. So when you can buy pieces of that offense for so incredibly cheap, like Tyrell Williams, I'm going to do that all day. Andy Isabella, I think Andy Isabella had a great college profile. I think he'll pop throughout the season. He's a guy who I'm only targeting in best ball because I have no clue when he's going to pop off. And David Moore, because DK Metcalf, for the Seattle Seahawks, they draft DK Metcalf. You think he's going to come in and be a stud. But really, he was, I don't want to say a non-producer in college, but he was significantly outproduced by his peers at college. Really, his big claim to fame is being an athlete, not even an agile athlete, just a fast, strong, tall athlete. I don't know if that's going to translate to the NFL, let alone immediately. I really do not see that translating immediately to the NFL. Whereas David Moore already has a rapport with Russell Wilson. He was efficient last year. I think he'll have multiple, high-end weeks that get into your starting lineup for like your last pick. I think he literally is my last pick or second to last pick in so many best ball drafts.
Before I jump to you, Justin, I'm going to just note on the Carr thing, I'm totally with you on this, except somewhere in the back of my mind, I keep reminding myself that I was saying at this time last year, wow, with all these great players around him, shouldn't Eli Manning have a good season? Okay, so I just hate to douse cold water because I am in on Carr. Justin, your wide receivers of note.
It's right at the top. It's Julio Jones. Julio Jones, baby. Dirk Cutter is back. Matt Ryan historically has slung at his highest pass attempt totals when he's been paired up with Dirk Cutter. This is a Falcons offense that we want to see go. I am a Julio Jones believer, and I have more exposure to Julio Jones than I think any other player in best ball. I think that, he arguably, if you were to build a wide receiver from scratch, it would be Julio Jones. Beneath him, I have Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, gentlemen, is coming at the biggest discount we have ever seen him come at. I mean, he's finished each of the past six seasons with 154 targets, 101 catches, and 1,200 yards is the average. I mean, he's not dead, gentlemen. Derek Carr is a low A-dot guy. I think that Antonio Brown, arguably the best feet in the NFL, create plays in short spaces, to kind of fit in with Derek Carr's capabilities. I don't think that he's you keep talking about Tyrell Williams, Kyle, and I like the player. I just don't know that Derek Carr has the big arm that Tyrell Williams is historically dependent on, these go routes and fly pass. So anyways, give me AB round 3, gentlemen. I got Antonio Brown round 3 in the Scott Fishbowl. You're going to pounce on that all day long. And round 3 in best balls right now is in fantastic round for wide receivers. You mentioned Adam Thielen, Kyle. Stephon Diggs, you're able to get there. I think you flip a coin, you're happy with either of those players. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans. It's Amari Cooper. You can have these guys round 3. I'm a little skeptical about Robert Woods with Cooper Kupp coming back. I mean, there's a lot of people love Robert Woods, and he's just Bob to me on a Rams offense that has a lot of mouths to feed.
Whoa, just Bob. Bob, how do you feel about just Bob?
Well, there's only one Bob. There's only one Bob Harris. But as far as Robert Woods, look, he's a possession receiver. We've seen these type of players. It's a Rams offense we love, but I mean, we got to slow down with the Robert Woods talk. Cooper Kupp is coming back. We want to see more of Gerald Everett. It's an offense that has a lot, and of course, Brandon Cooks. There's a lot of mouths to feed with the Rams. I do not have nearly as much exposure to Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas. It just hasn't worked out. Now, I love those players. Adams, Thomas, these are top 5 or 6 wide receivers. And, of course, I have some Juju Smith-Schuster shares, which I think everybody should, he's in the slot. We're talking about an offense that was the second most pass-heavy. AB is gone. Outside of Juju, I mean, you mentioned Vance McDonald. I mean, coverage should be different for Juju this time around. Where there is no AB, I can't envision Juju Smith-Schuster having 111 receptions this year, but they're top 10 guys. And it's a position where you could have a lot of fun at. I mean, A.J. Green you're getting in round 3. Vintage A.J. Green is just about as good as anybody. Kenny Golladay I have exposure to. Odell Beckham I'm finding myself drafting in round 2, and you're going to pounce on that every single time.
So basically, you like every single wide receiver in the top 10.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay, I got it. I thought of Kupp coming off the ACL, suffered later in the year. Don't be surprised if it's a slow start for him. I'm going to tell you right now, Justin Lonero, you sleep on Bobby Woods at your own risk, my friend. Yeah.
No, he's just Bob.
Okay, he's just Bob.
He's not Bob.
No, he's Bobby. I'm Bob. Everyone knows that.
That's right.
Look, I think there's some guys that I'm willing to take flyers on. Look, I like all the top 10 too. You'll be surprised to learn. And that's why they're in the top 10. Guys like Devin Funchess, I think, coming into a situation where maybe Andrew Luck thinks he's the new tight end. I like a lot of the guys you mentioned. I think there's a lot of late round values. Robert Foster's a guy that I'm interested in. He has established chemistry with Josh Allen. Look, I'm not against John Brown. I'm a John Brown fan. But Robert Foster was a guy who stuck around in Buffalo when everyone else left for a bye week, when Josh Allen was rehabbing his elbow, and then he came back and he was the most productive receiver on that team down the stretch. I don't think that was an accident or a coincidence. I think that's a guy to watch there. And I think there's a lot of guys you could take. Like you could take flyers on any Dolphins wide receiver. Once you have one Devontae Parker, you probably feel like you've had enough. Don't be afraid to pivot to Kenny Stills. Still capable touchdown passer. And what if Ryan Fitzmagic starts the season and gets on a little tear? I mean, I think those guys are viable flyers, and that's what I'm talking about here. Don't get it twisted. Not looking to have them in my top 3 receiving core there, kids. It's like wide receiver 5 or 6 or 7, and that's what you're paying. So moving on to tight ends, Justin, I'll let you talk. And if you say the sea of mediocrity once, I'm cutting your microphone. Go.
I have more exposure to real quick. I was just looking at my numbers and stuff, and go back to wide receiver for a second. What are your thoughts on Zay Jones? Had a good season, 24 this year, 56 receptions, 7 touchdowns. I know they brought in Cole Beasley, Smokey's there, and you guys are touting Foster. Any love with Zay Jones in 2019, gentlemen? I mean, it's not a Bills offense.
I would give him some advice. Put your clothes on before you leave your apartment, young man. Look, there's a lot of guys I like a lot better. I'm not taking any flyers on him. I should mention, too, by the way, I am so heavily invested in Will Fuller that he is bound to go down again early. So there's that. Robbie Anderson, also another guy. I think there's a lot of best ball-worthy guys. But as far as Zay Jones, no. Now, tight ends, Justin, go.
All right, 11 games, Deshaun Watson with Will Fuller. 11 touchdowns. Tight end, I have more exposure to Jordan Reed than anybody else. I think we're just cautiously optimistic, to say the least, about Jordan Reed on a Washington Redskins team that's going to it's going to be a bad offense. So if Jordan Reed, we look at Jordan Reed, we've seen years similar to Rob Gronkowski, but it's been the headaches. He's banged up. This is a guy that can never stay healthy. But the price on Jordan Reed is just, you can't pass it up. I mean, I cannot pass Jordan Reed up way late because of the lack of weaponry in Washington. Wishy-washy quarterback scenario. I think if Jordan Reed can put together 16 games, he could float to the top of the sea of mediocrity.
Bobby's still there.
Bobby's still there. So 60 receptions, 65 receptions, 700 yards, 7-8 touchdowns. I'm fine with that. Now I also like.
Allow me to interject, Justin Lonero, since you see a mediocrity me.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and say Jordan Reed is a guy I own a lot of because he's cheap and because of that upside that you mentioned.
Right.
And just, you look at the 12 games he played last year, his usage was exactly what it had been in the past. 23% target share, almost 7 targets per game. His catch rate was as good as it's ever been. So, I mean, just like Tyler Eifert, my most owned tight end this year, because he is basically free. He and Jordan Reed are my 2 most owned tight ends. That puts me in a position again, though. If you're going to draft these risky guys, they're risky. You know Tyler Eifert has scored a lot of touchdowns in not very many games.
Right.
And the not very many games thing is a concern, but the whole lot of touchdown things is great. So mitigate that risk by drafting a steadier guy. So continue.
Exactly. Exactly. When you look at a Washington Redskins receiving core like with Trey Quinn, Paul Richardson, Josh Doxson, and Jordan Reed sticks out like a sore thumb. It could be that proverbial safety blanket for whether it's Case Keenum or Dwayne Haskins. So I'm loving that. But of course you're going to have. I'm almost 100% of the time I'm going to draft 3 tight ends in best balls for reasons like this with Jordan Reed. Now underneath Jordan Reed, I have Trey Burton. I like Burton's upside. I think this is they really optimistic about Trey Burton in Chicago. I think he could be a top 10 tight end. And Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham is not going away. Jimmy Graham is still a top 15 tight end in the NFL, in my opinion, outside of Devontae Adams. There's, you have your Geronimo Allisons of the world, but outside of Adams, there's really no bona fide pass catcher there that I can see that has solidified himself yet. So give me Jimmy Graham. And again, all this is contingent on pricing. So I can get my boy Austin Hooper around 10 or 11. I have as much Hooper exposure as just about anybody else besides Jordan Reed. And I love Austin Hooper. I think he is going to eat on that Atlanta Falcons offense. Again, I said tight end 4. I think he can have 70, 75 receptions is conceivable. I want a piece of it if I don't have an opportunity to have Julio Jones or Devontae Freeman, who's also coming at a discount. A lot of tight ends. It's a lot of interesting stories. Gerald Everett I have exposure to. I want a piece of that Rams offense. I just don't want to pay a premium for it. I think Everett's a guy that we're going to see more of. One of these freakishly talented guys, almost like a younger version of Jared Cook. We thought he was going to be with the Rams years ago.
I can confirm you like every tight end as well, even though it is a sea of mediocrity.
Right.
So, by the way, on Hooper, his targets have increased every season. Yep. Now he'll be working in an offense run by Dirk Cutter. The last Atlanta tight end he worked with was named Tony Gonzalez. Admittedly, Austin Hooper is not Tony Gonzalez, but the targets were really high end. Expecting his target to go up this year seems like not a reach. Kyle, who you like that Justin has a bit? Well, wait, that's impossible. Justin likes everyone. Who do you like more than Justin?
Guys I like more than Justin, he didn't mention, only maybe because I already mentioned him, Vance McDonald, but I'll skip over him since I've talked about him. He just really has a chance to be a decent market share guy where the pie is so large, or at least it was so large last year, even if that comes down to earth a little bit, where I believe Ben led all quarterbacks in pass attempts, and I believe he may have led in passing yards too. But, the pie is so large, he doesn't have to acquire a gigantic share of that pie to be a prolific receiving tight end, and I think he will acquire at least a decent share of that pie. But moving downwards, I've got guys like Jimmy Graham and Jordan Reed. I feel so gross, not only for agreeing with Justin, but for buying these washed-up veterans. But really, when you look at Jimmy Graham last season, he was 6th in targets. He was top 10 in receiving yards and receptions. He was top 10 in YAC. The only thing he wasn't doing was scoring touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns on an Aaron Rodgers offense. What does Aaron Rodgers do? He throws touchdowns. That'll turn around this year. Will it turn around in favor of Jimmy Graham? I don't know. He's old and probably not very good anymore. But if you're around Aaron Rodgers enough, you'll catch touchdown passes. Just like if you're around Sean McVay enough, you'll get a head coaching job. Those are the 2 constants we have in the NFL. And Jordan Reed's just an extremely talented guy who was sort of close to healthy last year. It was a decent season for him. And I believe until he was hurt, he was a top 12 tight end. Right now he's going past that. That's just, it's value, which is what we're out here getting for. Guys going a little earlier that I want to get into, O.J. Howard. I am a huge proponent of this Buccaneers offense. I think Jameis is the ultimate gunslinger. He's like Ryan. I mean, we saw it last year. It's him and Ryan Fitzpatrick are the two who, DGAF gunslingers who are just going to throw the ball around all season. And, them and maybe Josh Allen. That you just want pieces of them, especially in best ball, because they're on such high variance offenses week to week. And you look at, they cleared out Deshaun Jackson, they cleared out Adam Humphries. That is so many targets. They're one of the highest teams in terms of vacated targets, vacated air yards.
28%.
Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, I mean, this is an offense where they are looking for so much that I'm really willing to buy pretty much everyone. I think Mike Evans is fairly priced, if not undervalued. The Chris Godwin hype is probably balanced out to the point where I don't know if he's a value, but I can still understand buying him. Really, I love buying Jameis Winston and stacking him with O.J. Howard, though, because I think O.J. Howard is easily the best chance to break into that top 3 and make it a top 4 tight end situation.
I tend to agree with a lot of this. I think it's interesting that none of us have mentioned Eric Ebron, the guy who was a touchdown machine last year, because we all expect some regression, right? I will say it seems like the price is not unreasonable considering last year's production.
No.
And it seems like people are, cooking some regression into the books. Just he was on the field. The snap count is not vast for him. We'll see what Jack Doyle does. Mo Alley Cox comes in, also a red zone threat. And Devin Funch is going to catch all the touchdowns anyway, because I have many shares. So there we have it. Those are guys we like, and I since we have already talked about every tight end, I'll leave behind, aside from the fact that I like many of the same ones Justin Lonero does, which makes me very nervous. I'm going to get over that and continue drafting them. I think that's it. Anyone else got anything they want to point to before they wrap up? I will start that by saying, hey, we make magazines at Football Diehards. Go to the website, go to the order page, get the magazines. Comes with website access, which includes access, of course, to this podcast throughout the season. And we'll be, by the way, also next month as we hit into August, we'll be going back to weekly. So expect to hear a lot more from us as we swim in the sea of mediocrity.
Kyle, did you hang up on him?
Did I hang on who? Bob? Yeah, I haven't heard him talk in so long. No,
he said sea of mediocrity.
He's allowed to say it. He says it
right.
like once every 4 episodes.
That's right.
You say it once every 4 minutes.
That's right.
No, he's right, though. Justin and I both put in tons of hard work, and I guess Bob, he's hanging out with the magazines, too. Bob sold 2 months of his life every year for the magazines or something like that. Justin and I both are contributors to the magazine, so we love seeing those come out every year. Check those out. Find us on Twitter. Find Bob at Football Diehard. Find myself at Kyle Tweets Here. Find Justin Lonero at Justin Lonero. That's it. You'll start hearing more from us every single week. Close to it. Thanks for tuning in.